I'm Christos Giovanopoulos, and I'm a member of Solidarity4all. Okay, but regarding the political situation in Greece, I can provide you mainly my personal opinions at that moment. Also because the new period opens new challenges, and we have to work out new things now. I think in terms of expectations of the results, I think personally, at least, I had more expectations after the announcement of the exit polls. That was, I think, what everybody shared in Greece, that we wanted Syriza to, even symbolically, to have 151 seats, to have a majority. So we'll have, in one sense, a full victory. But at the same time, thinking how I felt before the elections, I was pretty sure that it would be a very clear message against the Troika and against the bailouts and the political system and parties, former dominant parties, political parties that supported and were supported by the Troika. But you could feel that the trend towards Syriza, it was growing up, okay, but we were living with this kind of anxiety and willingness, let's say, and aim to Syriza to be able to form a majority government, so to win the majority of the seats there. And I think the elections reflected very well without giving solution, clear answers, they reflect very well this kind of complex situation. On one hand, a very clear message and rejection of what is happening and policies that are being followed in Greece the last 5 years, and also the previous political regime, rejection of the previous political regime. But at the same time, this kind of open in developments situation about the future. Regarding the coalition of Syriza with ANEL, to me it was, let's say, the most natural, organically natural development. I think it would have been much more odd for Syriza, and in my opinion unwelcome, for Syriza to collaborate with Potami, this fabricated party by the same economic elites that they were supporting previously, PASOK and the center left, because Potami in reality is a very kind of, I would say, postmodern kind of or light version of the old kind of social democrat liberals, neoliberals, okay. And they never kind of disputed the Troika, they never disputed what the programs that made the Greek people suffer, okay. While ANEL, despite their right-wing, and nationalist, let's say, perception in one sense, but they had been, anti-austerity, anti-memoranda, and for their own reasons, against the political system, and then against this complex between this clientelistic complex between political parties and economic interests in Greece. Of course, they have their own aims. They do this in order to break the old structures of the right-wing parties and the conservative political forces in Greece, and to replace them. But I think they're quite, they have remained quite loyal to these anti-memoranda policies, and when you try as a government, and I speak now from a position of Tsipras, let's say, I try to imagine why he did that, okay. And I think when you speak as a government that you don't have a majority and you want to create a social consensus in order to negotiate with the Troika from the best possible position, Tsipras, I think, decided to make this this gesture to to collaborate with to make an ally with ANEL in order to give to create a wider public support to the negotiations with the Troika, which is I think important. If you want to talk now my critical kind of moment, I think as far as it is important that at the same time I believe that if we had been more able and willing the previous period, and especially Syriza, to open up different processes of a political movement from below to organize better the society on the lines of have been preparing for a conflict with the Troika, I'm pretty sure that Syriza would have won the majority, and it would not be necessary to form a coalition. Okay, so if I wanted to criticize Syriza, it's not because they made the coalition with the ANEL. I think even if Syriza had got 155, 56, Syriza would have made some form of coalition with ANEL. But because you have to decide about the future of a country and not the future of your party and your left identity, okay? But at the same time, I would say that Syriza didn't do, or where the field that didn't do as much as it should have done, it is before the elections by organizing along different lines, not only how to administrate a different government, how to negotiate with the Troika, but how to prepare the society to organize for giving this conflict together. So, in my opinion, this kind of result that combines both the will of the Greek people to come in conflict with the Troika, but at the same time the reservation of the Greek people to give a kind of to trust fully, let's say, Syriza on doing that alone, reflects exactly these deficiencies, let's say, of political deficiencies of Syriza mainly. What I can get out of my experience the last year, and I speak after the December 2008 revolt, and especially after 2010, when all these political struggles against the Troika started and waged with the initiative of the Greek people, is that in reality we live a period that the old conceptions we have about either political representation or political organizations or social movements, they have been reconfigured, and they're reconfigured, and we reconceptualize them through this struggle. Okay, and as much as a criticism to the traditional forms of political parties and representations, they're outdated now. This experience the last 5 years, they have shown that all the conceptions of the social movements as we imagine them between after the 60s and until the anti-globalization movement, including the anti-globalization movement, has finished. They don't have to offer that much. In that sense, the way that we imagined, what is left, what is right, etc., it is in question, not in terms of their of the value of this distinction, okay, but in terms of what really does it do they mean, and how they're applied in everyday politics. For example, you said that the issue of you described the issue on migration as a political conflict, but for us, political conflict is a conflict with the Troika. Okay, so. This is something different, and for us, social politics is how we deal with the immigrants that come to Greece. And look now, in terms of the Syriza government. The Syriza government, as far as I know, they will form a coalition government with ANEL, but at the same time, it's the first time that, despite that, the Syriza will reduce the amount of the cabinet, or the people in the cabinet. Okay, so we'll have only 10, 12 ministries, but Syriza will create a new ministry of immigration. Okay, so things are not that quite clear, and okay, accordingly to what has been heard so far, the lady that is about to become minister of immigration, she's been in the head of the anti-racist movement, in the lead of the anti-racist movement all these years. So we reconfigure our policies in the context of the larger political struggle that will enable a democratization of the institutions. This is where I think, and why I think, that Syriza should put a lot of effort to mobilize the society, and the society also, not to expect from a government to give the solutions, but self-organize itself to work with the government against the main enemies, and also impose our own agenda. And on the other hand, because you spoke about national coalition, I would refer to a completely different example, okay, of the examples of the national fronts. The national fronts, for example, in the fight against the Nazis, the old political forces from Greece, they went to exile before the Nazis came. The Greek people stayed there, and some of the politicians, even right-wing politicians and centrist politicians, they created, with the initiative of the Communist Party at the time, the National Liberation Front. This is something completely different from nationalism, okay, and part of their despite the fact that they were they create coalition with the leaderships and previously right-wing people, and also they carried on being right-wing or conservative or even anti-communist in the past, the hegemony was exercised by the Communist Party. So it's not a matter of who creates what coalition. It is who holds and what kind of hegemony you construct, and what kind of social concession, and how you open up the possibilities for a movement from below, or for the society to turn to this side or the other side. It's not going to be easy. You've been showing in the elections how if you see the elections and the disintegration and the deconstruction of the political parties between the elections, the dominant ones, you can see how difficult it is to replace one political system with different political forces. For us, it's an open question, and for me, even Syriza is an open question. I don't take Syriza as a radical left party per se because it says so. It is a constant struggle. Okay, and for us, even as movements now, we have the challenge. Okay, how we're gonna collaborate? What kind of relationship we will have with the institutions that they are led by, a radical left party? Okay, even if we had a government only from Syriza, this would have been a great challenge to us. So things are moving, and I don't think perceptions about what is left, what is right, what is right and wrong, etc., help us that much. I think as I said, it is a new period. We don't know exactly. We don't have all the parameters yet, and I think that we will face new challenges. Okay, because we have to understand that what happened in Greece and how the movements in Greece they built up, or even how we had this political change, is not only about deciding, we have the left against the left prevailed against the right or against the neoliberalism because of the crisis. We live an organic crisis in Greece. And what does it mean, organic crisis? That's a holistic crisis. And we have a shift in paradigm. We have entered a new space where our ideas will be tested, and they're tested every day. So in that sense, I think that all the possibilities are open. But now, as you said, is not. So I said that because it was not only opposition to something. it was also this disintegration of the past, and that something new was needed to be formed or kind of emerge. And there it is where you have the possibilities not only to build something against the Troika or against to get for a different way out of the crisis, but also to work out a different example, a different paradigm of how the societies can mobilize, can organize themselves in order to create a different imagination that even goes beyond this political and economic system of capitalism. Okay, even though it may be very weak, even if though this, in my opinion, these movements from below, I mean the big general strikes, then the squares occupation movement was the most important, and then all the battles that they overthrow two governments, the invention of this people's kind of element, an agency in the electoral terrain, created the series of 27% and now the series of 37% in the government. So as much as Syriza politically, stands by this movement, and this movement can benefit from a government that tries to help generalize, let's say, some of the aspects and the practices that these movements have created. At the same time, these movements, I don't think that in this context of organic crisis and political crisis, where still the relationship between societies and political representation are tested, and this includes Syriza. This is what they say when Tsipras said yesterday that people didn't give a blank check to Syriza. This is what he meant, that Syriza will be tested. It's not that the old forms of parties that you had, kind of organized forces, and whatever the government did, the membership remained loyal to the government. It doesn't work like that anymore. Okay, so we have a more fluid situation, and I think you cannot have a change, or you cannot have a success in the expectations that Syriza has created if you don't have a very strong element of movement, from below. Name it as you like, a kind of political, popular movement, a social movement, or whatever. It doesn't matter to me. Okay, so for me, what we expect, it is just first of all, it is to make this government to do two or three things. One, it is to provide for those people in need in order to be able to live with dignity, and this, I think, our part is to do it in a way that not to remain in providing health or food to those excluded or unable or hit by the crisis, but by developing those kind of tailored counter institutions, those kind of structures that can mobilize people in doing this in a different way. And this is where we need the help not the help, we need the recognition of what we've been doing by this government, and not to be chased after. Okay, so the second thing, it is that that Syriza will stand up to the expectations of giving a conflict with the Troika and the EU elites, and not to back down. And this is why also you need a movement in Greece to support that, in order to help Syriza to counter the pressures from the economic and political elites, either the national ones in Greece, or the European ones and larger. And the third thing is that we have to build a common strategy of dismantling this political system and state apparatus based on clientelism, corruption, and all that stuff. And you cannot do this without establishing new forms of institutions with the participation of the people, and with kind of broader, more open spaces of democratic decision-making processes. So this is where our examples become, I think, very useful, and but also we have to strive to incorporate them in the programs that the government would do. So I think that all this together, they provide a more dynamic picture of how things will develop. And of course, there are no guarantees that we will succeed, but I hope at least we will do something better than before. Also, another dimension, and also something that we experienced, maybe you experienced also in these elections, was that the Greek people voted, but these elections, they were European elections in reality. Okay, I don't remember, and I don't know, I cannot imagine that the next elections in Greece we would have so many internationals here, you know, and I could not imagine myself or ourselves, nobody from our comrades could imagine ourselves kind of 5 years back that we would be in this position, you know, in the eye of the cyclone of what is the political development. It is important to stress that the international environment, it is better now for Greece and the government, the radical left-led government, to create a different paradigm and come in conflict with, or open up the fissures even more and the cracks, multiply the cracks within this neoliberal European neoliberal architecture of the European of Europe, let's say. And you can see how people shift, you know, even their problem within social democracy, you have kind of some differentiation in their positions. They will try to, of course, to cope and utilize this shift Syriza has made in order to capitalize on it, because I think social democracy is in a completely different kind of a critical moment with the neoliberal turn that they took. But this also opens up spaces for more radical left intervention there, not by creating coalitions with the social democracy, but exactly the opposite, by building their own alternative. And we cannot, I don't think that we can achieve anything in Greece without having these changes in Europe. If all the EU countries, you know, they just they fall onto Greece in order to avoid leaving the Greek people and the government of Syriza to create a different example, this would mean, you know, it may mean a defeat, you know, for the rest of the European people. But at the same time, I can see that that the political disintegration of the Europe as we know it is in the process. I think that it's very positive that we have these developments in Greece. I've been receiving texts, you know, from all over Europe about, oh, what great success, and these people need something that motivates them or inspires them. And at the same time, we have the expectation of Podemos, the elections in Spain, the elections elsewhere, that at least they will challenge the political systems of Europe as we know it, and the dominant political parties. And I think it's good that this challenge comes with from the left, and opens up a completely different dimension and different vision and perspective than how this in this kind of how to say displeasure or this indignation against the dominant political system is expressed in the central or in the metropolitan Europe that goes mostly toward the far right. So we need to build a different example that is viable. And in that context, I think all the different struggles and all these moments of mobilization that will happen from now on in a European context, and we need to enhance them and encourage encourage them and join them, they will play a critical role in transmitting this experience, you know, in Europe, and creating a force that can break up and turn it towards, you know, more kind of progressive side, this challenging of the political system. For example, the 18th of March Blockupy protest against the opening of the ECB, I think it can become integral part of in the negotiations between Greece, the Greek government and the Troika, exactly by emphasizing the European dimension of this struggle. And from our point of view, we'll try to do our best to support this international meeting, to be there, and also to link it with what has been going on in Greece. But also the Blockupy should also try to internationalize its perspective and sees itself not only as, okay, the people against not the people, to see it not only as a matter against the opening of the ECB, but as part of this larger struggle, which I think, you know, all of us want.